Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. If you're familiar with my channel, I do a series called Time Capsule. And what I'm doing is I'm reviewing every year from 1971 through this year. And I do it in 10-year increments where I show you the physical copies of all the albums. Well, not all the albums. I tell you how many albums I have from that year, and I kind of select my favorites, and then I rank the top 10 at the end of the video. So today I am going to go back to where I left off. I started with 1971, then I did 81, and then I went to 72, 82, and then I did 73, 83, all the way to 2013. Now I'm going back to complete them. So we are up to the year 1991. Like I said, I did 71 and 81. Here's 1991. Another great year in music for me. If I go by the numbers, I own 106 albums that came out in 1991. I'm going to show you 39 of my favorites plus 10 box sets because there's a lot of box sets that were coming out at that time. So that's the scoop. I hope you enjoy it. Hope you see favorites of yours, things that maybe you forgot about, maybe you want to check out. But it's a good year in rock and roll. Now remember, I own 106 albums that came out in 1991. If you don't see an album here, it doesn't mean I didn't like it. I probably have it down in the basement, just didn't make my top 39. And again, the top 10 at the end is just based on the amount that I play them. If they're here, I really like them. Alrighty, if you're new to my channel, or you're not new but you haven't subscribed, please hit subscribe. Please like, check out my other videos, this Time Capsule series. I think it's a good one. Alright, well, you know what? I'm going to start with the box sets because I really don't want these things to fall. That would be a huge disaster. This is not really a box set, but it's sort of a box set. The Stones released a live album called Flashpoint. Not a particular fan of it because I'm a huge Stones fan. And to me, it was a very dry live record from the Steel Wheels tour, which was an amazing tour. But this is a cool collectible because it had a second disc of, unreleased tracks and things like that. But one thing about the Flashpoint album that I do love is that they had two new songs in it. One called Sex Drive, which I didn't really care for, but one called High Wire, which I love. I only wish the Stones would play it live. High Wire, a great song from this live record from the Stones called Flashpoint that came out in 1991. 1991 was the first year that Bob Dylan and his record label started the Bootleg Series, and they released this box set, Bootleg Series Volumes 1 to 3, rare and unreleased, 61 to 91. And this was a really cool introductory box set to the archives of Bob Dylan. And of course, this series I think is the best ongoing archive bootleg series there is. I have all of them except for the newest one, but it all started here in 1991. Great series, of course. Clash, one of my all-time favorite bands, they did the Clash on Broadway, a 3-CD box set, a great overview of the only band that matters, right? The Clash. Love them. Great box set, the Clash on Broadway. Jeff Beck, they released a box set called Beckology, and this was a 3-CD box set, like the packaging, looked like a guitar case. Pretty cool. Good set, kind of good overview of his career. This I got not that long ago. April Wine, the April Wine Collection, 4-CD box set. And can you see it? Yeah, it's made up of live, vintage wine, rock songs, and the singles. If you want to get into April Wine, that's a good way to do it. Keith Richards and the Expensive Winos released their live one, and it's actually a great live record. It's live at the Hollywood Palladium. You probably can't see there's a mega box set right there that they put out, a huge box set, but this was the original box set of that. Came with a VHS tape concert with a booklet. This is a really good live Keith album, gotta say. That was number 4,241 of 10,000, so that's cool. Also came out in 1991. The Phil Spector Back to Mono box also came out that year with a ton of Phil Spector stuff in mono. Great box set. Everybody got to have some Phil Spector. Crosby, Stills and Nash. This box set. Excellent box set. Great overview. They have so many different offshoots, like a tree with roots. You got CSN, you got CSN&Y, you got various incarnations of solo and duets and Crosby, Nash, and Still's Young, and it's all here. This actually had a lot of unreleased stuff too. This is a really good box set. Crosby, Stills and Nash, the CSN box. Yes Years. Excellent box set, and there's a lot of Yes box sets, and I have, I think, all of them. This is Yes Years, the first one, and this is another excellent box set. The box sets were really coming out strong, late 80s. This is 1991 we're talking about. And again, previously unreleased stuff. A lot of the stuff would later show up on their remastered CDs, where they would dump a lot of unreleased stuff. But this excellent collection that really covered all the history of Yes through 1991 when it came out. And King Crimson, this beautiful 4 CD box, frame by frame. Really good overview of another band that, covers so many different lineups and so many different sounds. And you get 3 CDs covering the different incarnations, and then a live disc, number 4. Really cool, beautiful box, by the way. This has got a beautiful book, if I remember right. Yep, beautiful. You can't see, can you? Beautiful book here as well that goes into their whole history, and there's a peat frame family tree. Nice box set from King Crimson, frame by frame. All right, so there's an overview right there. Oh, I forgot one. I don't want to take it down. Right there, this huge Aerosmith box came out in 1991. That is the Box of Fire. And that is every album on Columbia Records, remastered, all the studio ones, the live ones, and compilations. That's a tremendous box if you like Aerosmith. You get it all right there. So there's your 10 box sets from 1991. Let's keep going, shall we, with the individual CDs in alphabetical order, and then I'll end it up with my ranking. And again, the ranking not as important, just the fact that they're here means that I really like them, because there's another 65 or so that are downstairs that didn't make it this high, but still really like those as well. If I have it, I liked it. 1991, the Allman Brothers put out this excellent release, Shades of Two Worlds. This was the second album after they reformed again for the 7 Turn albums with Dickie Betts and Warren Haynes, a great guitar lineup there. I loved 7 Turns, one of my all-time favorite Allman Brothers albums. It's a tremendous album. This one also is really strong. End of the Line's a cooking track. Nobody Knows is great. Get On With Your Life, good bluesy track. They do Come On Into My Kitchen as well. Really good record. I don't think this is as good as 7 Turns. That's just my opinion. But it's a cooking album. And Warren Haynes and Dickie Betts together was a great lineup from the Allman Brothers. And Dickie Betts is all over this with Warren Haynes. These albums, including 7 Turns, Greg Allman, a little bit missing in action as far as the songwriting goes. It was mostly Dickie Betts. I just liked this album. I thought it was kind of neat. Asia released Live in Moscow. And this did not have Steve Howard, it had Pat Thrall. But it's a cooking live album, and I'm a big John Wetton fan. I like these Asia live records because you get not just Asia, but you get some like Starless and Book of Saturday. You get some King Crimson there. You get some cool stuff. So there you go. Nothing major, but it's kind of cool. Blur released their first album, Leisure. I think they would just get better and better. This album is just okay in my opinion, but it does have She's So High, which is a great track. There's No Other Way is a great track as well. So this was their debut album. It's a good release. David Bowie, he put out the second album that he did with Tin Machine. This was called Tin Machine 2. This is the edited cover. It's just okay. It was an interesting experiment. They rocked pretty hard, and trying to prove that it was a band and not just Bowie. You get Bowie's not singing all the songs, but clearly it's a lot better when Bowie's singing the songs. And this album's just okay, but it's got a couple of really good songs. Shopping for Girls is a killer song. Goodbye, Mr. Ed. It's good. Tin Machine 2. Garth Brooks. Yeah, I like Garth Brooks. Rope in the Wind, one of his biggest albums. Really great record if you like Garth Brooks, And this is Rope in the Wind. And a lot of great songs on here, of course. Burning Bridges. She does this version. Shameless. The River. Amazing. Papa Love Mama. What's She Doing Now? Great. Rodeo. Eric Clapton released a cool one. He was doing that residency when residencies weren't as popular at the time at the Royal Albert Hall. He did 24 nights and different themes for different shows, and then he released this double live album, 24 Nights, also a Laserdisc and a video. And it's kind of cool because you get a sampling of the different stuff that he was doing, you know, the blues stuff and the rock stuff, and even at the end there's like that orchestra stuff, Edge of Darkness, Hard Times, Bell Bottom Blues, Wonderful Tonight. Good live album from Eric Clapton. I think this is really a cheat because this was really Gene Clark's first album with the Allman Brothers, which came out in the 60s, but I got this in 1991 because they reissued it with a bunch of bonus tracks, including some Bird stuff and some unreleased stuff. So it really didn't come out in 1991, but it kind of did. It's called Echoes. I'm a big Gene Clark fan, but this is really old stuff. It's really his first solo record, the first solo stuff from the Birds. Crowded House released this excellent album, Woodface. This is one of their best ones. I'm a big fan of Crowded House back then, and a lot of great stuff on this album. It's Only Natural, Fall at Your Feet, Weather With You's Killer, Whispers and Moans, Four Seasons in One Day, There Goes God. She goes on. This is really good Crowded House stuff. Dire Straits released their final studio record. A lot of people gave it a lot of shit after Brothers in Arms. They're crazy. It's a great album. On Every Street. Biggest problem with this album was the opening single was Calling Elvis, which is a really long extended track that's totally uncommercial, but it just goes to show you the way that Mark Knopfler thinks. He doesn't put out the really commercial stuff, and I think in America that kind of killed the album to a certain extent. But I saw this tour. They were amazing, and this album is loaded with a ton of great stuff. Heavy Fuel and The Bug is kind of typical Dire Straits, but it's got a lot of... It's a more full sound. You know, there's country on here like How Long, and Planet of New Orleans is killer, and You and Your Friend is incredible, Iron Hand, and the title track, On Every Street. This is a great, great album, and you'll see where that goes in the top 10. Fish released his second solo record, Internal Exile. How was he going to follow up Vigil? Vigil is one of the all-time great albums. This is not as good as Vigil, but it's a fine, fine record. Shadow Play, Credo, Just Good Friends. This is a strong record. Something in the Air is the cover track, but this is a really good record from Fish. Genesis possibly hit the peak of their popularity, but not with me. This is We Can't Dance. I was one of the world's biggest Genesis fans, and I was an early adapter from the very beginning, but this latter-day Genesis really didn't do much for me. Listen, it's fine for what it is. There's a reason why it's so popular. But if you want to torture me, strap me down in a chair, tie my hands down, and play I Can't Dance over and over again, and I swear I'll try to beat myself senseless because I can't handle that track. But Jesus, who knows me, no son of mine, you know. Typical Hold On to My Heart, you know. It's okay. Not something that I play a lot, but certainly hugely successful. Grateful Dead really started to dip into their archives, and this was the one called One from the Vault. They would have a lot of different Vault series with Dick's Picks and Dave's Picks, and they're officially live release stuff, but this is a really good live record. This one's from August 13th, 1975. Cool set list right there. A favorite. This is a good one for sure. One for the Vault from the Grateful Dead. Guns N' Roses. They dropped the bomb with Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2. What can you say? I mean, I could do a whole video on Guns N' Roses. I don't consider myself the biggest fan of theirs, but I like them, have all their albums, and I appreciate... You know, nobody like Axl Rose. I mean, he just thinks big, does what he wants, doesn't care what anybody thinks, doesn't care what his fans think. He could have 80,000 people waiting 3 hours from their pier, and he walk off the stage and after 3 songs he doesn't like the sound, and he just doesn't give a shit. And if I was at that concert, I would hate him, but never listen to them again. But no doubt that you got to take your hat off to a guy who just doesn't give a fuck. And he doesn't. So he dropped the bomb with Guns N' Roses, not 1, but 2 albums. Worked really well, was hugely successful. Springsteen nicked it the following year with Lucky Town and Human Touch. But if you take the best songs on both of these, you would have one hell of a album. But there's a lot of great stuff, you know, obviously. Use Your Illusions 1 and 2. Damn right I got the Blues. Buddy Guy, one of his great albums, and it's one of his latter-day albums. It was a huge hit. Damn right I've got the Blues, and... Mustang Sally. This is a great Buddy Guy album if you want to get into latter-day stuff. A guy I really liked who didn't have the success he deserved, but I think this is his best album. Came out that year, From Strength to Strength. This is Peter Hillerman, and this was one of my favorite albums. You might see it in the top 10. You'll have to see. But it's a really good album from Peter Hillerman. You know, Permanent Things and Only Innocent, Whispering Days. I played the hell out of this album. Really good stuff. Jethro Tull released Catfish Rising. Sort of a forgotten album in their discography. It's kind of bluesy, it's kind of mellow, it's kind of low-key, but it's real good. And, you know, This Is Not Love, Roll Your Own, Rocks on the Road, Sparrow on a Schoolyard Wall, Still Loving You Tonight, Doctor to My Disease. Yeah, a lot. You know, you look at it and you're like, it's a really good Tull album, but I don't play it that much. But it's kind of a quieter one, more acoustic, bluesy, but still rocks. B.B. King played at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, and they released the album Live at the Apollo. Is it as good as Live at the Regal? No. Is it really good? Yeah. There you have it. Paying the cost to be the boss, and The Thrill Is Gone. Still sounding good back in 1991. B.B. King, Live at the Apollo. The Knack released Serious Fun. I'm a big Knack fan. There's a video I did just on the Knack. But this one was not nearly as good as the predecessor, which was Round Trip. This is a more straight ahead, late 80s. This came out in 1991. Straight rock album, Rocket of Love, I Want Love, Serious Fun. But, you know, One Day at a Time is a really good track. It's just a more straight ahead, hard rocking album from the Knack with less variety and less taste than the other ones. Little Feat, well, this would be their last album. With this lineup, Craig Fuller was in the band at the time. They had come back after Lowell George really strong and had a bunch of hits, but this one didn't do quite as well. It's not as good as the other ones. And but this is Shake Me Up. Still, you know, decent. It's good. Little Feat is still always good. There's no bad Little Feat. But after this album, they'd bring in a female singer, Sean Murphy, and do it all over again really well. Nils Lofgren, no longer on a major label. He went to Ryko Disc. He was playing with the boss, Bruce Springsteen, and he put out Silver Lining. I think he thought it was going to be a big hit. They publicized it. I remember seeing him on Howard Stern. Springsteen helps out on Valentine. Walking Nerve's a good one. Sticks and Stones is a great track. Trouble's Back is good. A Little Bit of Time's good. Being Angry. But overall, me being one of the world's big Nils Lofgren fans, I thought it was a good, solid release, but a little bit underwhelming. And Valentine's a good track. Silver Lining. Nils Lofgren. Paul McCartney released the Great Unplugged album. The official bootleg. I have a video on my favorite Unplugged acoustic live records, and this is way up there. This is a great acoustic live record Unplugged album. McCartney did a wonderful job on this. This is a great listen to this day. Paul McCartney Unplugged, MTV Unplugged. Joni Mitchell released, oh, did I miss one? Yeah, I missed one. Metallica, The Black album. Now, I am not a big Metallica fan. I appreciate their talent, their gargantuan. This is a great, great album, obviously. I mean, Enter Sandman, The Unforgiven's incredible, right? I mean, if you love Metallica, this is them at their best. I just don't play Metallica a lot. I appreciate them, but this is The Black album. One of the probably the biggest album of that year. Not for me. Night Ride Home is Joni Mitchell's album. Another really solid release. Latter day album from Joni's. Came in 1991 we're doing. But Night Ride Home, Passion Play, Cherokee Louise, Slouching Towards Babylon, Come In From the Cold. That was not a hit, but it was a hit on my turntable. I really like this album from beginning to end. This is a really solid album. You'll see this in my top 10. This is one of my favorite live albums. I just did live albums that introduced me to it, and this was in there. Carla Olson, Mick Taylor Live, Too Hot for Snakes. A fantastic live record with Carla Olson and some bluesy stuff, some rockin' stuff. Mick Taylor's great. They did Sway long before the Stones did. They do it better. Silver Train, great live version from the Stones as well. And you get some of Carla's best stuff like Midnight Mission and See the Light, and even Broken Hands from the Mick Taylor solo album. This is a great live album, one of my favorites. Another huge band that year, and monster debut album is one of the best of all time, I guess. This is the remastered version, Pearl Jam, and the album 10. What can you say? It's an all-time classic. I remember seeing them opening up for Keith Richards on TV, and they were awesome. And then I wound up picking up 10, Every song was a clash. I kind of like that Metallica album. Another album that I just don't play that much, but it's phenomenal. Pearl Jam and 10. Tom Petty, coming off the massive success of Full Moon Fever, he went back with the Heartbreakers and did Into the Great Wide Open. And, it's one of those albums. Petty is always great. There's no such thing as a Tom Petty album that's not really good. And it's just kind of underwhelming, but when you play it, you're like, every song's good, Learning to Fly is great, King's Highway is great, the title track's great, Two Gun Singers is great. All of a sudden, you're like, wow, every song is really, really good. And it is. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Into the Great Wide Open. R.E.M., blockbuster album with Out of Time. I mean, what a year this is, right? 1991, we're just in alphabetical order. Out of Time, phenomenal album. Everybody knows Losing My Religion. It's classic, it's timeless, it still sounds great, but, Near Wild Heaven, Shiny Happy People with the B-52s helping, Half a World Away, Texarkana, Country Feedback. This is a great R.E.M. album. There's a reason why it broke them nationally on a huge international stage. This is a great album. Out of Time. Bonnie Raitt had a late resurgence, massive success, and she continued it with the follow-up album. This was Luck of the Draw, another excellent Bonnie Raitt album. Something to talk about. Good Man, Good Woman. I Can't Make You Love Me. Unbelievable track. Another fine release from Bonnie Raitt. Great one. Hugely successful. Little known in the United States, but this is a great album. I love this one. Auberge. Chris Rea. And I'm a big fan of Chris Rea. I love this album. If you don't know him, this is the really great one to start with. If you don't want to start with like a best of, but Gone Fishing, You're Not a Number. This is a terrific album. Looking for the Summer. Really excellent artist, Chris Rea. Kind of Dire Straits-like in a way. Robbie Robertson had released his first solo record, which I thought was one of the greatest albums of all time. He followed it up in 1991 with this one, Storyville. And it was just as good, really. I think this is an amazing record. Night Parade and Hold Back the Dawn and Go Back to Your Woods. Soapbox Preacher, Day of Reckoning. What About Now? Fantastic album. Storyville. Robbie Robertson. Bob Seger, he put out another album, The Fire Inside. And kind of like those latter-day Seger albums to me, they're good. I don't think they're great. I think they're good. They always have a couple of real good songs. New Coat of Paint, Long Way Home, Take a Chance to Real Love. It's good. Good solid stuff, but not great. It was great? This Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes album, Better Days. Produced, arranged, done by Little Steven, Miami Steve Van Zandt. But this is a killer Southside Johnny Asbury Jukes album. If you don't know him, this is a really good studio album to begin with. It just rocks. It's produced so well. It's got tremendous balls. The songs are catchy. Great Southside Johnny album. Sting was going strong with his solo career, and he put out Soul Cages. And, he's just such a quality artist, man. Even stuff that's not the best of Sting is still really good. And that's a good way to describe this. Is it as good as Dream Blue Turtles? No, but it's still got loads of great songs on it. Ooh, almost fell, but it didn't. Teenage Fan Club. Really good power pop band, I guess you would describe them, from overseas. This was their second album, and this is their best album. So if you want to experiment with them and you don't want to get like a best of, check out this, Star Sign. The concept is great. Metal Baby. There's just a ton of great songs. This is a really good, if you like that power pop, melodic rock, Teenage Fan Club's a really good band from overseas, and Bandwagon-esque. This is their best album. 5 stars, according to a lot of people, like Wall Music, I think, and Q Magazine. Yeah, this is a really good record. Next up, U2 released Octung Baby. If you watch my U2 video, this is my number 1 U2 video, so this is going to fall in my top 10. I think it's a perfect album. I think it's the best album they've ever done. It's a masterpiece. Every song is great. There's not a song on it that's not great, and they stretch out. The original single was To Fly, which is really unusual, but you got things like One, which I think is one of the greatest songs of all time, and pretty much Mysterious Ways is funky, and Ultraviolet. Every song's great. This is an amazing album, Octung Baby. We're getting towards the end. Hope you're still there. We got Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Double Trouble, The Sky is Crying. This is a posthumous release. He had passed away. But this is, there's a lot of posthumous releases. I think this was the first one after he passed away, and this was a really good collection. You know, Little Wing and Wham and The Sky is Crying. Great stuff. But I'm a big Stevie Ray fan, so. And the last one, Wishbone Ash. They had reformed the original band, put out a great instrumental album called Nouveau Calls, No Vocals. Then they did Here to Here, which was a regular album, and then they lost their drummer, and still went with 3 of the 4 original members. They put out this album called Strange Affair with a different drummer, 2 different drummers subbing right there, Robbie France and Ray Weston, great drummers. Really strong release. It was actually the final album of the original band, basically. But I thought it was really good. A lot of great tracks. Standing in the Rain is a monster track. If you want to check out Wishbone Ash to this day, that's one of the great ones. The title track was really popular. Wings of Desire is a fantastic track. Check out that one. Some Conversations, unlike any other Wishbone Ash song, it's like an acoustic, really pretty melody. That's a really good one. Say You Will, Rollin', You. I used to see them play these things live. Hard Times. It's a fine record from Wishbone Ash. So there you have it. 39 CDs, 10 box sets. The best of 1991 for me. So what are the top 10? Let's rank them right now. For me, at number 10, the gargantuan Never to Be Afraid, Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion. Yeah, these two are bloated. If you consolidate them to one, it would be an incredible album. But you know what? Sometimes you just take your hat off to a band that's just not afraid to throw it all out there. And that's what they did. And you have things like Coma and, Don't Cry, 2 versions. Paul McCartney's happy. Live and Let Die. He probably played more money from Guns N' Roses doing the cover of that than the stuff that he's been putting out. And, just a lot of great stuff on here. Of course, November Rain is the biggest track, but yeah, great stuff, or a lot of really good stuff on here. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 at number 10 from Guns N' Roses. Let's keep going. At number 9, we're going to go with the Allman Brothers and their second album with the Warren Haynes, Dickie Betts lineup, Shades of Two Worlds. Again, really fine release. A lot of great tracks on this album. For sure. At number 8, you're going to go with R.E.M. and Out of Time. Their biggest album at that time, maybe their biggest album of all time. It's not my favorite R.E.M. album, but it's certainly hugely great. Losing My Religion is one of those songs that still will never sound old. At number 7, we're going to go with Pearl Jam. They're not a band that I could listen to all that often. I could only take them in bits, but no doubt that 10 is about as good as it ever gets with Pearl Jam, and it's a monster, super classic album. Deserves all its accolades and made them the superstars they are. At number 6 for me is Wishbone Ash, Strange Affair. Just talked about it. Fine release. It's not their best. It's not up there with their best, but there's a ton of great songs on there, and it was their final album with the 3/4 of their original lineup. At number 5 for me was Peter Hillerman from Strength to Strength. It's a band an artist that you probably don't know. It's a really good album if you want to, like a singer-songwriter type guy. This is just a really good record. Impermanent Things, Women with the Strength of 10,000 Men, Love of Midnight, Only Innocent, Whispering Days, Crushed, Mission of My Soul. Yeah, I love this album. Great stuff from Peter Hillerman, From Strength to Strength. Hope this stuff doesn't fall. At number 4, we go into the big biggies. We got Storyville from Robbie Robertson. An incredibly great record. No doubt about it. I love that album. Fantastic follow-up to his debut solo record. At number 3 for me, one of my favorite live albums of all time, Carla Olson and Mick Taylor live. Too Hot for Snakes. You get Carla Olson, you get Mick Taylor, you get some Rolling Stones covers. It's a searing, fantastic live album. At number 2, Dire Straits, On Every Street. I'm a huge Dire Straits fan. This album is sorely overlooked, doesn't get the respect it deserves. Mark Knopfler never wanted to be a rock star. He does what he wants to do. He kept expanding their sound. This is a Dire Straits with a big sound, but there's a ton of great stuff on here. The title track's amazing. When It Comes to You is great. Fade to Black, You and Your Friends, incredible. Iron Hand's great. Ticket to Heaven's beautiful. Planet New Orleans is like progressive rock. How Long's Country It's got it all on here. Number 2 album of the year for me from that year, Dire Straits on Every Street. And the number 1 album by far, U2 and Achtung Baby. It is truly one of the greatest albums of all time. It's perfect, and it's got one of the greatest songs of all time, if not the greatest song of all time, in my opinion. But every song on this album is fantastic. It's a masterpiece, and I'm glad that they're going to come back and play it in Las Vegas at the Sphere. There you have it, folks. 1991, a great year in rock and roll, and a ton of box sets, everything you could want. A lot more music coming your way. You could see I got the deluxe of the new Tull album. I got the Genesis box. I haven't opened them yet. This is current listening, and I'm going to keep going with this series. We're up to 1991. The next one will be 2001, and then we'll do 2011, then we'll do 2013, and then we'll continue. So thanks for tuning in. Please hit subscribe. Check out my other videos. Stay safe, stay healthy. I hope you had a great Mother's Day, or still having a great Mother's Day. I'll see you next time.